1, 2, 3, 4. We made 4 wonky stars in the past video, in the previous video for this instructional on how to make these wonky stars. And this wonky star is different from this one, is different from this one, is different from this one. So you can see they are all very wonky indeed. All right, now what you can do with these is up to you, but I'm going to put these in a 12-inch block. I'm going to put, now these are trimmed down to 4.5. So remember, in the previous video, we started with a 6-inch square, 4 fabric pieces, different, I have different fabrics, 4 6-inch squares of fabric, and then we cut them wonky. I showed you the template that I used. I didn't actually use that template. I know what a star looks like, so I used that as, you know, I kind of set that off to the side, and then I used that as like a guide, but I just free-handed cutting these, but I cut them all the same. So watch the previous video. You'll see how it all came together. Now, we've made these 4 stars. So I am going to put them in a 12.5-inch block for my Sew a Year Full of Stars. Quilt along, quilt as you go, star block of the month. So we did one for July already. I'm kind of sneaking this in the last weekend of July to have our second star block for July. Not that we need double, 2 or 3 star blocks in a month. We really only need 1, but I like to throw in a little extra. So that's what I'm doing here. Now we're going to take you over to the cutting surface, and if I use my mat right here, so I'm measuring 12 inches and 12 inches. So here's 12 inches, and I bring this up to 12 inches. So this is my 12-inch circle, or 12-inch square, not circle. So if I put these on the edges, and I mark where 12 inches is, and that shows me what a 12-inch square looks like. So now I have all this empty space that I need to fill. Now, looking at my mat, I can see definite 2 inches and a definite 2 inches. There's also a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here, and a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch here. So that means there's a total of 3 inches that I need to fill in. Well, what I did was I cut 1.5 inch strips, and I'm going to place 1.5 inches this way. Now, because I'm super tired, and then 1.5 inches this way, all right? And then that will bring this a little closer. And then we have 2 inches, a 2-inch gap on here and 2-inch gap. So we have 2 inches around the side, or something along those lines. Now, because I am super tired, I did not account for the seam allowances. So when I cut my 1.5 inch strips, I was like, oh yeah, 1.5 and 1.5 makes 3 inches. That'll be perfect. However, we have a 1/4 inch seam allowance that we have to account for. So halfway through cutting these, I realized that, and I was going to change the width of this, and then I thought about it, and I was thinking, no, I'm not going to do that, because if I have leftover pieces here, I can sew these little leftover pieces and make that part of the border as well. So I just thought, you know what, if it doesn't, and it probably won't, if it doesn't measure, where's my 12-inch square? Oh, my computer's sitting on my 12-inch square. Hang on, guys, we're going for a ride. All right, so here's my 12-inch, and again, I have an OmniGrid tool, but I'm not sponsored by OmniGrid. So if I put this this is a 12.5 inch block square. If I put this over, I know exactly where my star block is. Here, let's go for a ride. Whee! We're gonna fly up in the air here. So see how much space I need to fill on the outside of those squares, those little 4.5 inch squares. So yeah, so there's some space I need to fill in. I know I'm gonna be short because I cut these. These probably should have been 2 inches. That would have been better. 2 inches would have covered this space, but I didn't do that. And so whatever. There might be like a little bit of gap on the outside of the finished, the unfinished square block that we do here. And if that is the case, which probably will be, then I'll just put another little teeny tiny border around the outside of that. Not a big deal. And it can be a contrasting color to this. And it might actually look pretty cool. So it could end up to be a really fun mistake. Anyway, so let's go to the sewing machine. All right, we fly you over here. Here's the sewing machine. Now, again, I just have white thread in here, not a big deal. Now I'm going to bring these over. Okay, and so it doesn't really matter, I guess, which order you put these in. I think I'm just going to do this, though. I don't know. Not a super big deal. Whatever works. I think that's good. I kind of like this way. There. All right. That works for me. So, or maybe I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do this way. Should I do that way? Or that way? I'm going to do that way. No, that kind of measures that. Same there. Okay, let's do that. I kind of want it to, it's wonky and it can be, whatever way, but I kind of want to get it to like be a visual thing that meshes with my, my eyes and not like doesn't mesh. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't really matter to you guys. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take this strip and I'm going to place these two. Now these are the top for me. I'm going to place these two. I'm going to happen to place them right next to each other because it's not going to matter. I'm going to trim this off. And this is going to be left over. Okay. Wait, is that how I want to do it? Yeah, that's how I want to do it. Wait, is that how I want to do it? Now I really have to think about this. Yeah, because that'll be, so what I'm doing is I'm just creating, and then I'll sew these together. Yes, that's what I want to do. So I want to cut that off there. And then I'll sew, when these are sewn together, and then I sew this part on there. And that creates a column. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing here, and that creates a column. So yeah, this is going to be left over. Okay, so if you don't understand, hang on. We'll do it together right here. So I'm just putting these face down on this sashing. I'm going to get these out of the way so we're not confused. Okay, then I take it over to the machine. And I'm going to remove this so I don't, whatever. So I don't, whatever. Okay, so now you can do a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. I'm actually going to do an 1/8 inch seam allowance just because I've done an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on all of these little squares. So I'm going to still do an 1/8 inch seam allowance here. Now that will give me a little extra width to my sashing, which will add to the total end product. So I don't know if I'm going to still get a 3-inch, sashing out of it, but whoa. All right, now that just went wonky. I'm going to cut that because, all right, so see how that went wonky right there at the end? I don't want that. I definitely don't want that, okay? So this was straight all the way across, and then I moved my body or something, and then I made that go wonky. So I am going to take that out, probably the stitch line to here. So I'm going to take all this out. Now, I don't know where I have the top part of my seam ripper, but I don't know where the bottom part went. So I have to crawl around on the floor, I guess, and try to find that. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. All right. So now that's pulled off. Okay. Now I'm just going to realign the bottom sashing so it stays straight. And just sew right along this edge again. I'm going to pick up a little bit before where I left off and do a back stitch just to lock it down. There we go. That's straight. Now, I don't know which way I had this going, so I'm just going to, let's see, take a look at this. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to throw this on here just like this and do the same thing. 1/4 inch seam allowance right along that sashing. Make sure the sashing doesn't move, and there we have it. Okay. Now I want to cut these apart. You can rotary cut them, or you can take your scissors. Why does this look like it's... Alright. Just like that. Just like that. Alright, now this is left over. So if I open this up, I want to press this because again, oh, this is getting cool. So if you have ever followed along with me before, you know I like to press because I like a flat surface to sew with. So I just go over to my iron and press these flat. Okay. Alright, so that's like that so far. Alright, now, where'd my other blocks go? Okay. Alright, so these were on the bottom. Okay. Yeah, that guy's kind of upside down, but whatever. So I'm going to attach these like this. Attach these to here, just like so. So, right sides together. Line up the edges. Line up this edge along here, and then line that edge up there. And then use the same seam allowance. Whatever you started with, continue through that same seam allowance. You want to have at least some continuity. Yes, it's a wonky star, but have a little bit of continuity because it just makes it visually appealing. All right, same thing here. Line up this edge, line up these two edges, and then I'm just going to chain piece. So I'm not cutting my thread right here. All right. There we go. Cut the thread now. And cut this. Now we've created this column and this column. Okay? So I'm going to again iron this flat. So in the previous video I did not really mention which way you should iron your seams. I just kind of let it go wherever it goes. But on this one you might want to iron the seams to the inside. So here you can see I ironed the seams to the inside. That seems to be the easiest, and it kind of makes the most sense right now. And also what's going to happen is you will forever, because I'm using a lighter fabric color, I will forever have a shadow behind here, but that's okay. If I when I quilt over top of this, because we quilt this as we go, so we quilt each block as I quilt over top of it, I will just make sure I put my thread down right on there. I'm not going to stitch in the ditch, but I'm just going to sew that straight down so that catches all of the underneath fabric, all that seam. And also, it will kind of hide that shadow, so it works that way. I have a thread here that I do not want, so I'm just going to trim this. Now the next thing we're going to sew is the middle sashing straight down. Okay. So I think I wanted my stars like this. Okay, you can put your stars whatever way you want. I'm just going to do this. And now we create another sash line right down the center here. Now you can put your sashing however you want. I'm just going to try to get the tops to align. But first I want to do one side, just like we did here. So I'm just going to do one side. And then I'm just going to put the sashing on the top instead of the bottom, so that I can see where it is and to keep it from shifting. But I am going to overlap, so a little bit here, like I'm going to overlap a little bit on the top because we can always trim that off. It's better to go too long than too short. I need some tea, hang on. All right. And then straight down, making sure all the seams stay where they are. You don't want them to flip over underneath. And if they do, stop, fix them, reset, keep going. All right. So, again, flip that over, and I have a tail here that I'm going to cut off because I don't need that. But first, I'm going to iron this, and that gives me another flat surface to work with. And then I'm going to put this column down. How was I going to do that? Like that? I think so. All right. Doesn't matter too much, guys. Now, you want to make sure that you line up this edge. You can't even see that. This edge with this edge. So, yes, there's a little tail here where we overlap the sashing. That's fine. Just ignore that. You're going to line up this line, and then line up that line. So again, make sure that this little sashing part, it doesn't matter. You're not lining that up. Okay? So if you want to stick a needle in here, you can, just to keep everything in alignment. So I'm going to grab a needle. Oh, and that's tossed to the floor. That's just super. And then this goes right on here. We start stitching the same. I just had to pick that up. The same seam allowance you've been doing this whole time. Keep that going. Take out the needle so you don't hurt the pin so you don't hurt your needle. All right. And here we go. We're creating that block. Okay, now's the time where you can trim off that tail. Just going to, again, press the middle sashing. So, here's what it looks like so far. Pretty cool, huh? Let me bring this up a little bit for you. There we go. There's our wonky stars. Now I'm going to do it this way. There's our wonky stars. Okay, so I'm just going to scissor this off. Not even rotary cut. And I'm not trimming it up to size right now. What I'm going to do next is just take another sash. And you can see that the sash overlaps, which is great. So I'm going to put, I think I want to do this. The side sash, and then the side sash on this side. Okay, and then we're going to add the top. Now the top sashing should be And should be long enough to overlap these two sashings. So you can see that clearly it does. All right. So when you make your cuttings, you want to make sure that that happens. Okay. So I'm going to add the sashing to this side. And again, you can overlap a little bit. Cut off this thread. And you can add a pin if you like, just to make sure the sashing does not shift on you like it did for me in the beginning. Okay, so it might be worth the extra 2 seconds to do that to make sure everything stays in alignment. And again, make sure all the seams underneath are running in the same direction that you want them to. Take your pin out so it doesn't bend your needle. There we go. Okay, so now this is on the side. Perfect. And you can trim this little tail off right there. Again, I like to press. Now we're starting to add up these little tails. Okay, so this is what I was talking about in the beginning. When we have these little tails, we can sew them together and create another sash. So if you're only using like scraps and you start to run out of fabric, you can sew these together and that creates another sashing. It's also scrappy. So if you wanted that look, you can definitely create that. But I cut enough sashing strips that I don't have to do that right at the moment. So, but the one underneath, I just want to show you. Can you see this? Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't. But there is a shadow of the sashing. So that I am going to trim this so that it is close, just like that. Okay? There we go. Now, I'm going to add this sashing to this side. So remember, we want to get the sides done first, and then we can add the top and bottom sash. Okay, overlap a slight bit. Take it to the edge. You can pin if you like. Same seam allowance size that you've been using this whole time. Make sure your seams are running in the same direction that you want them to. All the same instructions. We're just going to keep on going. Also, adding the sashing adds a bit of stability to your block because, because it was a little bit of pieces pieced together. I could, now if you really wanted to, you could put these blocks directly against each other without the sash. So it would be something kind of like this. So the blocks would be, right next to each other without the sash. So they would be, close. I didn't really want that. I wanted a little bit of space so that you could see each block individually. Oh my gosh, did you not even see that whole sewing thing right there? Oh, good. Good one, Kim. Yeah, that's good. All right. So, anyway, we'll get this video done, and this won't be edited, so you're going to see nothing right there. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's how it goes right now without the editing feature. I have tried to edit, and it's super long, and it takes too much of my time because I work 7 days a week, and I'm trying to get these videos in when I'm not working. And yeah, like right now it's 11 p.m. So I'm trying to get this done so I can have this uploaded for the weekend. So not like that's an excuse, but I guess it's an excuse. It's the reason why one of the reasons why I'm not going to be editing. It just takes too long, and I don't know, it doesn't work right for me anyway. If you want to see some cool editing, I did a short, like I did a 1 minute. It took me 4 hours to do a 1 minute edit. So yeah, just imagine, you know, doing these 20-minute, half hour, 45-minute videos to edit. It'll take all day, and I don't have that kind of time. So we're just gonna have to do this as is, guys, raw. So I do apologize for all the craziness, all the crazy shots. So, but you can see how we're forming this block now. Okay, so we have a little tail on the end here. We can trim that off. Again, I like to iron. At least you can see this part now. I do like to press. And then we can trim this off. You can use a, yep, that didn't trim so well. But at least it went out and not in. Now we have our last sash to do at the top. And you know what? This didn't really catch. So I'm going to re-sew this just to make sure it is secure. Yep, there we go. Back stitch. And I'm going to iron that just to make sure it is flat. And then we add some more sash. You know, so this I could probably, yeah, but I'm not going to right now. So trim is the word I was trying to think of. Yeah, I could probably trim that, but I'm not going to right at the moment. Gotta make sure all my seams in the back are going in the proper direction. If they flip up, it's not a super huge deal, but it does add a little bit of extra bulk that I don't really need right now in my quilt. Alright, and we've created the square. So I'm just going to trim off this tail just with scissors. Try to be more precise this time. And iron the edges. Now let's take a look. So here is our block. Here is our, so this is an unfinished block. Here is our 12-inch, 12.5 inch, and yes, I am a little bit short. I am short by maybe a 1/4 inch. Maybe a 1/4 inch on, to be safe, a 1/2 inch on both sides. So yeah, I am a, yeah, 1/2 inch short. So what that means is I will add just another sliver of a, actually what that means is I will add another sliver of a sashing, maybe in a different color, maybe even just white, but, oh, my hair, that's actually going to get lost in the seam allowance. So that's going to add a little bit of bulk when you go to do your quilt sandwich and then you trim it. That's going to be a problem. So make sure you do not do the mistake that I made and make your sashing more than 1.5 inches. Make them all 2 inches or even 2.25 inches. That'll give you enough overhang out here so that you can quilt that, because now is the time when we do our quilt sandwich. However, I'm going to add the extra sash off camera, and so you guys already know how to do the quilt sandwich by now. Add your batting, add your backing, and then whatever pattern you want to use to quilt the top of this, go for it. All right, look at that. Now I usually just do squares, or I just like outline the pattern, whatever it is, which this year has been stars. So I'll probably just do, like I said before, just follow the shadow of the seam allowance underneath. So I'm going to do like, you know, 2 stitches down, 2 stitches down, definitely on the border on the outside. And then I'll probably do some stars on the inside. I'll just follow the outline of the star and maybe do it on the star and then on the background for each one, maybe a couple times. And then that's going to be my quilt. And then that pattern shows up on the back if you just have like a plain or, you know, like a, this is a white with speckle. But yeah, so if that's your backing, whatever pattern you put on the front is going to show up in your thread on the back. So make sure you have a colorful thread or a matching thread or a contrasting thread or however you're going to work on that in your machine when you do your quilt sandwich. All right? Okay, so there it is. There's our second Wonky cut star block for July of 2023. Thanks for playing along, guys. I appreciate everybody. Hit your likes, shares, and subscribes. I know I'm kind of a mess right now. It is a super humid and hot day here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So, have yourself a fun time making this, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.